I was deeply in trauma and struggling with evil, demonic forces that, had come through my father and psychiatry. I was always describing these demons and evil, and they were saying, one day they said to me, Paul, it's because you have such potential for light that the demons are even interested. And right away I got that, and I realized that's not just me, that's the way it works. These demonic evil forces are just attacking me, and that's the best news I've heard all day, because what that means is that I'm on the right path.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Blue Hour podcast, where we explore the minds and the worlds of visionary artists and creators. I'm very excited for this second segment with Paul Levy and the Lunar Segment, where we explore more the inner world of the artist, of the visionary, and get to see a different side of his career that has not necessarily been seen before. So asking more subjective questions that for Paul Levy is quite exciting because his subjective world is very developed. If you've listened to the first part, you'll know that a lot of his experience, his subjective experience, is what opened up the door to all the downloads and all the material for his books that he writes. And on top of that, he's a specialist in Jungian psychology. And so I had my Jungian tarot deck and had him pick a card to add a bit of mystery and enigma to this episode, and had him interpret it and how he sees this archetype. And finally, at the end of the episode, we get a more practical tool that he gives us, is a meditation that was inspired by the Lapis Lazuli, a rock that's very blue, and it's linked with the third eye, but also with the deep intuition, and he shows us this practice that he does every day. And a little bonus at the end of the episode also that you'll have to listen to find out. Other than that, we now have 2 days left to apply to the Visionary Rose gift. So if you haven't applied, you have a few days left, you have time, go check it out, the link is here. And don't forget to go shop our hoodies. It's the perfect season to be wearing an extra comfy and oversized hoodie during your meditation, just for the style of it. So let's jump right in.
So I started the camera already. I like this segment to not be like, it's all in one shot, very raw. The first question I've been asking all my guests this season is in 3 parts. The first part I'm going to ask you right away, it's called the initiation. What gives you the most joy that allowed you to persist along your journey up to today?
Oh, okay. What gives me my most joy is when I tap into my creative spirit. That it feels like that oxygenates my soul, kind of thing. It just makes me, it's like I step out of my own way and connect to something deeper than myself, and then I become an instrument for something that comes through, and it's profoundly healing when I do that. That's why I write every morning, because that's the experience that I have. And it just, any sense of feeling like fucked up or stuck or traumatized just evaporates when I connect in that way. And so definitely the sense of connecting with, the creative spirit that is intrinsic to our nature, to all of our nature, not just me, like, oh, I'm a creative person and other people aren't. No, that's all of our nature, but I'm fortunate to have that subjective experience, be a part of my day all throughout the day.
Mm-hmm. And I think even for the second and third question, you'll see the layout where it's bringing, but obviously your books are a testimony of that answer. But let me just ask you, the second question is called the descent. So you have this string that is your life, that the vibration of that is joy, is what makes you continue living. Then there's the descent, the shadow or fears that you've had to face along the way, and what you've had to let go to overcome it. And because your books all describe, that's what your books are about, maybe you can give a recent one.
Yeah, of what? Of the descent?
Like a fear or a shadow that you've had to face lately that kept if joy is the vibration that vibrates throughout your life, Something that came to obstruct it recently?
Well, no, that's interesting to me, and I don't even know if this is an answer to your question or not, but it brings up something for me. I was just telling, because I talk to my best friend every day. He's in Thailand on business, and he also had an awakening and was hospitalized, and and so we really connect. He's more of a scientist, I'm more the dreamer and the artist, and I was just telling him, going, the last little while, unbelievably, these demonic evil forces are just attacking me, and and all that, and then we'll joke, and I'm going, and that's the best news I've heard all day, because that's an expression to me. What that means is that I'm on the right path, or they wouldn't be like wanting to stop me. And I think that's a real sort of formula, a real dynamic that can be helpful. And I'll just connect the dot here. Years ago, in the mid '80s, I had met my teachers, these great lamas, two of the greatest Tibetan lamas in the world, and I would see them all the time, and I was deeply in trauma and struggling with evil, demonic forces that had come through my father and psychiatry, and every time I was seeing them a lot, a couple times a week for years, and I was always describing these demons and evil, and they were saying, one day they said to me, Paul, it's because you have such potential for light that the demons are even interested. And right away I got that, and I realized that's not just me, that's the way it works. And the big danger is for people to feel the demonic stuff and then to let it stop them, and then to be like, wow, I'm really fucked up, and just to split from the creative work they're doing, where I've learned to be like, no, of course that would happen, and actually this really close friend of mine who's this minister, he read the Watiko books, the last two Watiko books for Audible out loud, and he, one day he called me up, he goes, Paul, I can't believe it, when I'm reading the books out loud, I'm getting assaulted by demons. And I just began laughing, going, well, imagine what it was like writing the books, And so I think that's really a helpful thing for people to understand, that of course, when you're shedding light on darkness, the darkness doesn't take that lying down, it's gonna try to stop you, but that's an expression that you're on the right path, and not to let it stop you.
That's beautiful, and you kind of answered the third question, and you'll get the initiation, descent. The third question is rebirth. So once you go through the life with this vibration of joy, you get all the obstacles, you overcome them. What is this gold nugget that comes out of it?
I love this. It's like just this living connection with your nature. Jung calls it the self, or in Buddhism they talk about the true nature. And then what you discover is that the seeming obscurations, the demons, are actually allies. They're helping you to even deepen your realization of your nature. Because in alchemy they talk about the philosopher's stone, and they describe it as being invisible. And it's invisible like a mirror. If there was nothing in front of a mirror, you would never see it. But you put an object there and the reflection shows up, and the reflection on the one hand seemingly obscures the silver surface of the mirror, but it's actually revealing the mirror. You would never see the mirror without the seeming obscuration. So the idea being that these seeming obstacles or these darker forces are actually secretly your allies. They're helping you to even more become familiar. And interesting, in Tibet, the word meditation translates as becoming familiar. So you just become more and more familiar, with your nature, to the point where you just more and more trust in it and embody it, and you don't have to effort or strain. Similar to today, here you're coming over to, interview me, and, I was there was no stress, there was no pressure. I'm just I'm just gonna be myself, and, and how freeing is that? And I've learned when I do that, that's when typically stuff comes through, as compared to memorizing stuff or having a strategy or an agenda or a curriculum. I've been asked to teach this big course, and I would make a lot of money and get a lot of students, and I turned it down unless I wouldn't have to write a curriculum, because they wanted me to write a curriculum. And I was like, no way, that's too constraining. And I was totally unattached. I was like, if they want me to write a curriculum, then I'm not their guy. And to their credit, they agreed. But that's what I've learned, that when you connect with your nature, it's always available, it's always there, and you can just trust in that and embody that and be that,
That's beautiful. So that's a very that's something that resonates a lot for me.
Yeah.
Being in my solar dasha also, I'm learning to become more like that.
Right.
More authentic, and this authenticity is your strength,
Yeah. And how I learned that, my teachers, these great lamas, they embody it. They're like, they're just completely at ease, like all the time. They're just super relaxed. And, in their tradition, they say and they're like the lineage holders of this tradition, they say when you become enlightened in this tradition, it cures the disease of effort. Like effort is seen as the very disease.
There's no more resistance.
Yeah, exactly. Because, that's the self-contraction. We've gotten in the unconscious habitual habit of contracting against our own light. And there's no one else doing that to us. We're doing that to ourselves. So the idea is when you stop doing that, then your light just shines naturally, effortlessly.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So next segment, flash questions. Answer with as many words as you want. You can say just one word. What is a recurring symbol in your life right now?
Well, I would say a recurring symbol is this being a dream. And, because the language of dreams is symbols, and then I think of quantum physics as a symbolic procedure, which is actually revealing to us the dreamlike nature. And so instead of it being a specific symbol that's happening in the waking dream that I'm waking up in, the symbol is that this is a dream, and it's just continually embodying itself and reflecting itself and transmitting that it's the dream. And the more I see it that way, the more I see the dreamlike nature, the more dreamlike my experience becomes. So that might be not like your typical answer, but that's what comes up.
That's the whole point of these, is that there's no typical answer. It's
totally.
to get the most atypical aspects of you. A book that changed your life understanding.
Well, I would say really any of the works of Jung, and for decades, because all of, I own everything he's ever written, and I annotate them, and for decades I would only use pencil, because to me they were so sacred that I couldn't bear writing something with pen in them. But now as I get older and I'm realizing, well, I might not be around for too much longer type of thing, and now I'm starting to use pen, but the point is that they're unbelievably, like, they transform my life, just finding his work. And so, and I was the bookstore manager of the Jung Foundation, so my job was people would come in and say, oh, what would you recommend in Jung? And I'll just share, like, his autobiography, Memories, Dreams, Reflections.
I read that one.
I would highly recommend if a person isn't familiar with Jung.
Yeah.
And then he wrote a book, Answer to Job, which is a very short little essay. He was 75 years old. He had a fever. He was very sick. And he said if there was ever anything like the spirit grabbing you by the scruff of the neck, this is the way Answer to Job came out. In other words, it was a channeled work. And he says I would change everything I've ever written, except I wouldn't change one word from Answer to Job. And what Answer to Job is about is it was Jung's really trying to come to terms with evil, with the darkness in God. And when he finished it, and he finished it after a few days, his fever was gone. And he says it was the happiest day of his entire life when he finished that work. And so it was very, very controversial book, particularly for people who believe in traditional Christianity. And so Memories, Dreams, Reflections, and Answer to Job would be the two books I'd really recommend. Yeah.
Okay. Color that holds specific power for you. Special power.
Well, two different colors, and one is marigold yellow. And why that is one of my teachers was this really incredible enlightened master from Burma, and she was a great healer. People with terminal cancer would come to her, and she would just sit with them, they'd go back, and there'd be no cancer. And this happened so many times. There were like articles about her in journals, and she would always say, "Oh, I'm not doing anything, it's just the Buddha." But, we were really close, and, her picture's over there and over there, and, and one day she told me that, you'll see the black and white picture, and one day she told me that the most healing color, because she would work with colors and healing, and the most healing color was marigold yellow. So there's that. And then another color is Lapis Lazuli blue.
Oh.
I do, a practice called the Medecine Buddha, and the Medecine Buddha is the color of his body is Lapis Lazuli blue, just radiating that light, that color. And the idea is you bathe in that color, but then you become the Medecine Buddha, and you radiate out that.
Maybe you could share this one after. I would be very interested.
What's that?
Maybe you could share this practice in the other segment. I would be curious to hear the whole thing.
I could do a little bit of it. Yeah, definitely. And it's
Yeah,
something
but
I do.
let's come back to it after.
Yeah,
so
it's something I do every day for sure.
I would love this because the Lapis Lazuli is a very special color in this part of my life for me, because as a painter, I started to work with the deity Nut, the Egyptian deity,
Right.
the cosmic mother.
Yeah.
And so her body is made of stars, and I've integrated her body in a lot of my works, and I paint her with Lapis Lazuli paint.
Oh wow!
So
that's
the
beautiful.
pure
You can
pigment.
see there's a beautiful lapis. Do you see on the very right,
wow.
next to that treasure vase? There's a big blue lapis.
Wow.
Because lapis is also symbolic of the philosopher's stone. They call it the lapis. Yeah. That's the color of the
interesting.
Medecine Buddha. Yeah.
Cool synchronicity.
Yeah.
I've really I've spent maybe $500 on little tubes of Lapis Lazuli paint
Right.
just for the symbolic nature of this pigment.
Yeah. Well, that's very symbolic, that lapis, because it's the philosopher's stone. In alchemy.
Sweet. A meaningful smell for you.
A meaningful smell.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what comes up, and this is really out there, when I was after getting hit by that bolt of lightning, and, I was in like a really expanded state for the next couple of years, and a number of times I got thrown in hospitals because I was so out there, and, but when I reflect back upon it, like I've been saying, I realize, oh my God, I was having like a full-blown realization experience of realization that just needed to be like contained and integrated. And one of the weirdest parts of it, there was a certain day where I was smelling this fragrance, and I don't even know how to describe it with words, but it was the most beautiful fragrance I'd ever smelled. And I knew then when I was smelling it that somehow it was related to my inner experience of what I was realizing. I mean, it felt like it was not from this world. And I never smelled it again, but it was like on, one particular day. Yeah, I haven't really thought about it, but I don't even know what other words to put on that. Yeah.
I find interesting smells. I integrate this question because for me, smells is a very powerful tool. Almost like spirit can communicate through smells, because smells, you enter dimensions through smell.
Right.
It's such a
It
subtle
can bring up memories. It can
memories,
bring,
emotions.
Yeah, totally.
So it's interesting to see what's a memory, and then perhaps it's a key for you somehow to remind yourself of this meaningful smell and re-enter it somehow.
Yeah. Right.
So for time reason, I think it would be cool. I brought my Jungian tarot deck.
Yeah.
With all the 78 archetypes of the tarot in the Jungian language. So with the intention of this card being something meaningful, or being a mirror for you to share something meaningful. So you just pick one intuitively, whatever resonates from what you see and you want to share from that image, even if it's relevant to that card or not, whatever it evokes.
Sure.
So you can just pick, I put them all there.
Oh, I see. What is that?
The two of it would be the two of fire, the two of wands.
Uh-huh. Okay. Well, what it brings up for me, just the image, you know, this is like a little kid.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've been, you know, that's been showing up in my life is like reconnecting with the little child, you know, in me. And there's a friend of mine, and we've been, you know, really in this, you know, incredibly creative process where it's like invoking in both of us this, like, you know, this really pure, innocent, unself-conscious, you know, spontaneous, playful little kid. And, you know, and I feel that that's really healing for me, the more I connect with my inner child in that way, because, you know, because of the abuse that happened and, you know, from the negative father and all that, the idea of getting in touch with my own, with just that sense of play and spontaneity and innocence and purity, you know, is profoundly healing. So that's what that image brings up in me.
And just quickly, the every time there's a 2 in tarot, it involves decisions.
Okay.
So whatever you said, like, I think to add to the message, the symbolic of the message is it's a choice. So it has to be like a conscious choice when you wake up to be in that. Otherwise, it can flow and you don't really do it. You know.
Yeah.
So the idea of choice and will, because wands is always linked with willpower. You have to use your will to activate this. But also I realized that, you know, this is kind of forming the cross of sacrifice. So almost like your childhood was sacrificed for what you're doing now, but somehow it was not lost, you know.
Right.
So coming back to it is a full circle moment.
Yeah.
So so that's it for this segment. I think lastly, if you want to share the Buddha, the Lapis Lazuli meditation, I think that could be very nice too.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, there's a couple things. You know, you were asking about a practice, because I'm happy I can just do the medicine practice. But then I also, you know, wanted to share one of the things that's been incredibly helpful for me, you know, and this is a major part of my next book, is, you know, so it's about Jung, and Jung is saying again and again that our species is possessed and that we are in desperate need of an exorcism. And one of the main things he talks about is the importance of objectifying contents of our unconscious, because the way these darker forces operate is via us unconsciously identifying with them. Right? If you remember, Watiko offers us a false version of ourselves, and then it puts us on like a suit of clothes. We then identify with it, and then it's the lens through which we see the world, so we can't see it if we're identical with it. So what Jung, you know, the major psychological practice that, you know, I can really speak for how profound this is, just based on my own life, he talks about objectifying these unconscious contents. In other words, give them a shape, give them a form, give them a name, because by doing that, you distinguish yourself from them. And all of a sudden now they're not possessing you, you're in a relationship, and you can take a stance towards them. And, you know, so that I think is really, really helpful, because then what you begin to discover, it's as if these contents are almost like they're living beings, and they have a hook in them that they want you to identify with them, where you just become them, and then, you know, then you're fucked, because then you've given away your own agency, and then you just unwittingly become an instrument for whatever that content, the darker part of it, to act itself out and express itself and embody itself through you. So the idea is to, you know, objectify them is really a psychological form of the exorcism that Jung is talking about. And, you know, and this is what, you know, how he came across the whole active imagination, where you then have a dialogue with them, but you're creating yourself separate from them. You can take a stance towards them, you know, And this, you see, and he also says they're not hard to objectify because these, say, I'll just take a, connect the dot here. He talks about there's trauma. We all are in trauma to whatever degree. And then what happens? We split off. So it's an overwhelming experience. We can't integrate it in a normal way. We can't symbolically express it in the normal way. So we split. And that split off part, if we don't integrate it, it develops an autonomy of its own. And it becomes, in psychology speak, an autonomous complex. And indigenous people call these autonomous complexes demons. That's what's ego. And it's adversarial to our conscious will. And it seemingly has a will and a seemingly independent life of its own because it's actually part of our own psyche that we've split off from. And it will manifest as a seeming demon, And so that's why, so Jung says they're not hard to objectify because they're autonomous. They personify themselves, And so then he's basically saying, take advantage of that. Treat them as if they're a person outside of yourself. Then you're not in unconscious identification. Then you can actually have a dialogue with them, and he goes, that's the way of actually taking away their power, empowering yourself, and integrating,
That's powerful. To come back to art, when I was in the darkest place of my life, I was doing all these automatic drawings, and lots of faces and stuff came out. I never did anything with them. They remained. But then my parents, 3 years ago, sold their house, and I had to go through all these.
Right.
I took them all, and I had a project called Tabula Rasa, so New Start. And I decided to put them all in a big grid on the wall of the gallery space as a way of giving them a separate identity than mine and showing them to the public, being like, this is not a shadow anymore. Look, they're all there on the wall. Everyone can see them.
That's
so
great.
I connect with that.
Yeah, and I love that. I was doing automatic drawings when I was having my awakening too, and amazing stuff came through.
Do you have stuff to show?
Yeah, no, I don't have it here.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So then I'm happy then to do a little bit of the Medicine Buddha practice.
Yeah, and
I'll get my mala just so because I like. And so I'll just describe the practice, and then I'll just do a couple minutes of it. So what Tibetan Buddhism does, it takes advantage of our projective tendencies of the mind, because typically projections, if I'm projecting on you, I'm not seeing you, I'm seeing my projection, so it creates separation. But what Tibetan Buddhism does, it says, okay, what about, because we're unconscious of our Buddha nature, what about if we project it out on the screen of our consciousness? And there are all these different forms. There's the compassionate form, the wisdom form, the wrathful form, and there's the healing form. That's the Medicine Buddha, the healing Buddha. And just envision a Buddha who's actually, and I have a picture, I can bring out the picture.
Sure.
Yeah, I'll bring it out. Yeah, so here are two pictures. This is the Medicine Buddha. You see he's blue. Mm-hmm. And here's Padmasambhava, who's the Buddha of our age, as the Medicine Buddha. And you can see he's blue also. And what I'm going to be doing is the practice, the Medicine Buddha of Padmasambhava as the Medicine Buddha.
Okay.
And you can see this one, they've both been blessed by my teachers. They consecrated them. And so let's see.
So do you use them as active imagination?
Yeah, like I'll describe what I do, what the practice is. So what you do, to take advantage of the projective tendencies of your mind, you project out onto the screen of your consciousness the form of the deity, the Medicine Buddha, or the Padmasambhava. And I should just explain, like Padmasambhava, when the Buddha was getting close to passing away, he kept on prophesizing an even greater incarnation than himself will soon be born, whose name will be Padmasambhava. And Padmasambhava was, you could say, born fully enlightened. And he started Tibetan Buddhism. He conquered, it was a country filled with demonic forces, and he turned them all into protectors of the Dharma, and founded Tibetan Buddhism, he also founded the Dharma tradition, the hidden treasure. He kind of cracked the code and figured out, oh, I can actually plant these hidden treasures in the fabric of the universe so that even after I'm gone, I could still be like conspiring with my followers to help them awaken. So he actually started the Dharma tradition, and he's considered the Buddha of this very age. So the practice I'm going to do is Padmasambhava, assuming the form of the Medicine Buddha. But what you do, you imagine the form of the particular deity a little bit in front of you, a little bit above your head, in a body of light, not in a solid fleshy body, but in a body of light. And you imagine just you're bathing in the healing energy. Like when you're out in a sunny day, you feel the warmth of the sun, you feel the warmth of the grace waves, and it's healing all of your physical, emotional, psychological, mental, spiritual illnesses, even the cause of the illnesses. It's all being completely healed to the point where you then merge with the deity. And instead of relating to the deity out there, you are the Medicine Buddha. Mm-hmm. And you have a body of light, not a body made of flesh, but a body of light. And you radiate out that healing and blessing that you've just received. You radiate that out to all beings. And in a sense, that's the practice. And then at the end, you see, because that can also become a subtle form of ego if you think, oh, I'm the Medicine Buddha. So at the end, you, just like a rainbow dissolves into the air, you just dissolve as the Medicine Buddha in the body of light into the emptiness. And that's the doorway into your true nature. And you just rest in that emptiness. So that's in essence the practice. And I'll just do like a minute or two worth of the prayers and the mantra.
And we'll be at 30 minutes, so.
Yeah. So, Lama tompa chumdande desing sapadra tompa yanda paso pe sangi mangi lavadoya. Okiga bala chok solo toto kyapsu chio semchen cholo jipene chonse mizo duknaneki Nyenbana initato mapa so with the origin mangilarang in me peche mind bajani baso origin pema jongne la sowa deb sampalungera bara chenjalo semchenjolo jipene chonse Mizo dobrane ki nyenbana initato mapa so with the origin mangilarang in me peche mind bajani baso origin pema jongne La sowa deb sampalungera bara chenjalo semchenjolo jipene chonse mizo dobrane ki Nyenbana iritato mapa so with the origin mangilarang in me peche mind bajani baso origin pema jongne la sowa deb sambalunga bara chenjalo namo bhagavate bhagavate guru padurya Brabradya tatakadera te samyak sambudaya te no began to ma began razo samungate so namo bhagavate bhagavate guru padurya Brabradya tatakadaya arate samyak sambudaya te no began to ma began raza samungate so namo bhagavate bhagavate guru padurya Brabradya tatakadaya te samyak sambudaya Deya don began to ma began raza samungate so namo bhagavate bhagavate guru padurya Brabradya tatakadaya Arate samyak sambudaya te no began to ma began raza samungate so namo bhagavate bhagavate guru padurya Brabradya tatakadaya arate samyak sambudaya te no began to ma began raza samungate so ha Devo began to ma began Raja samungate so te no began 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 ma began raja samungate so ha Sonam ditam se zikpane te opnjenje pedranam pante te kegarazi balon trupa isit be sole droa rasho. Okay, and the last thing I said, the last prayer, that was, whatever merit we've accumulated by doing this practice today, it's dedicating the merit. You want to offer it to all beings. You don't just want to keep it for yourself. They say if you get like blessing from doing a practice and you keep it for yourself, or you just think of your own benefit, it's like taking a little drop of water in your hands and after a little while it'll, just evaporate. But by dedicating the merit, like, oh, whatever blessing I've achieved by doing this practice, let me offer and share it for the benefit of all beings. They say it's like taking that drop of water and putting it back in the ocean, and you get the whole ocean. And the point is not just to dedicate the merit after a particular practice, but every moment, whatever you're doing, you're just offering and dedicating and sharing for the benefit of all beings. So you're stepping out of your own like self-absorbed sort of narcissistic trance, and you're recognizing, yeah, we're all parts of one another. We're not separate, and that's the sort of the attitude with reference to the dedication of the merit.
And thank you for sharing this. I really felt it as you were saying. I felt the energy radiating from your heart. So I know it's very potent. Were you reciting like the same thing over and over? I didn't see if it was repeating or if it's...
Yeah, there was... At first, there were two invocations. There was, one that I just said once. Then I did the prayer invoking Padmasambhava's Medecine Buddha 3 times. And then I did a longer mantra, I don't know, maybe 4, 5, 6 times. And then I did a shorter mantra a few times.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if we want to find that mantra to repeat, what is it called online?
Yeah, you could just put in Medecine Buddha, the Medecine Buddha mantra.
Okay.
And, I think it's the same, the mantra I think is the same for both the Medecine Buddha, the big picture, and then for the, Padmasambhava as Medecine Buddha, I think it's the same mantra.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah,
very
yeah.
useful, very powerful as well. So.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So yeah, you were saying this is the storage that of all your books that got kind of infiltrated by mold that you have to keep at a distance, but
Yeah. I mean, they, like I said, I put them through that ultraviolet machine, but I just can't risk it, because if I bring in something, that can contaminate the apartment, then I have to get rid of everything, and I bought all new stuff for the second time, and it's just too much. I can't do that. So here's an example. This is a Jung, one of the collected works, and when I say that I annotate, this is 40 plus years of annotation, and so that's why these are so important to me for my writing, because I'm continually quoting Jung and stuff like that.
and you go back to your own references, your insights that you kind of scripted for continually improving your thought process.
Yeah. And then, in the morning, like I say, I write in the morning, so I come here and get what book I need, or what book I'm dreaming about that night or something, and then on the top floor, the 7th floor, there's like these clubhouses that and in the morning, no one's there, and I go up and I, have my cup of coffee and I write, with my book. And then when I come back down, I put the book back here, and then I go back to my apartment, so the books never get into the apartment, because I just have to keep the apartment really pure and clean, even though probably these are okay, because they've been remediated. I just can't risk it.
Yeah.
It almost killed me. It was like, there was barely any flesh on my body. It was all been taken over by this rash. Wow. Every doctor who saw me said the same thing. They said, oh my God, I'm very concerned. And so I was like, tripping out, going, oh my God, I'm being, here, this mind virus, which is immaterial, but it can also manifest materially.
It's weird because you're attacking the virus through your books, and now it's the books attacking you.
Yeah, no, totally. It was just very strange. So anyways, so here are the 2 books. So this is On Dreaming Watiko, and let me just show you one thing. This is an amazing book, and I don't know if you know about Rudolf Steiner.
Yeah.
There's a chapter on, and there's also this guy, Nicholas Berdyaev. He's a Russian philosopher. He's amazing. And this one, The Battle for Our Angel, that's an amazing, it's talking about we all have an angel inside of us that is dying to connect with us, but it can't do that unless we, have the intention to connect with it, And then there's a chapter on Wilhelm Reich. I don't know if you know The Murder of Christ. It's a classic book. You would love that. And this is the biggest chapter in the book, all about shamanism. And there's also a chapter about Answer to Job. Remember I said one of my favorite. So this book On Dreaming Watiko, this is the 3rd of the Watiko books. And then this is the original one. And that's it. So let me just sign it for you.
It's so nice. I really appreciate that. I'm going to read them with even more appreciation.
Yeah, no, well, it's so good, Alex, just connecting with you, and I just appreciate you coming, all this way. So, yeah, thank you.
Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you liked this episode. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with a friend that could benefit from this conversation. And don't forget to go support Paul. Go buy his books. They're very, very profound. And if you don't like to read, there's also the audiobooks, so you can find those on Spotify, and I'm sure on different platforms that I'm not aware of. But go check his work out, and don't forget to apply to the grant. 2 days left. The link is below. And I'll see you next week for this new episode where we're gonna be speaking with 2 ceremonial magicians. The real deal, not trick magic. Like, I'm talking about the psychological, spiritual type of magic. So you won't want to miss this one out next Monday. And until then, I love you guys, and much love and light to all of you.